Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Coaches Close Clients podcast. Today, I'm so excited because we have Jen Casey here, and Jen Casey was one of the first people I started following in the whole online space. So I'm super honored that she's here, and we're going to be chatting all about sales and her experiences, and she's going to give us some tips as well. So yeah, thanks so much for being here.
You're so welcome. I'm so excited. This is such a good full circle moment.
Right. Yeah, I love it. Cool. So yeah, why don't you start off telling us a bit about you and what you do now?
Sure. So my name's Jen Casey. I'm a business strategy and NLP coach, and I work with online coaches who want to go from social media to sales and think like a top earner. I started my journey way back in network marketing as a health coach back in 2011, started getting really serious about it in 2014. And from there, I just started to recognize that, posting recipes wasn't really my jam. I was like, if I have to share another fit tip or answer another question about, what greens should I eat, I was just completely over it. So I started to recognize that it was time to transition into business coaching. People started reaching out to me, and that was how I kind of found my way into specifically working with health coaches and then kind of opening up to working with online coaches as a whole. So it's been a crazy journey to get here, but it's amazing.
Awesome. And I know that a big part of your specialty is social media to sales. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so like I said, when I was doing health coaching, I really found that, the biggest thing that people struggled with was learning how to position themselves on social media. And one of the things that they really struggled with was niching down. And this was really big, especially in the network marketing industry. It was kind of this understood that you were to market to everyone, speak to everyone, stay general. Everyone needs our shake or our product. And what I started to notice was that I accidentally stumbled into my niche just by sharing my story one day about emotional eating. And this was back in 2014 or something. And as I did that, all of a sudden, instead of working with all of these random people who were coming to me, I started to attract my tribe. I had already been pretty solid at sales. I knew how to close sales, but I was just taking on anyone and everyone. So I was totally burnt out, totally spread thin, trying to, work with the vegan girl who, was trying to figure out how to eat out of a dorm room. And, this guy who was like, I want to learn how to, get pumped and, use all these different pills. I'm like, okay, this is crazy. I'm doing all this research. So when I found my niche and started really speaking to that one specific person, the sales conversations became 1,000 times easier. My group coaching programs suddenly started to gel. People became a tribe. And overnight, it was the weight lifted off of my shoulders because I wasn't hustling so hard in my business to make things work. Everybody just kind of gelled together and the groups essentially ran themselves. All of a sudden leaders were emerging, and it was really cool to watch this community, become a family. That's really what it was. And through that, I just kind of became obsessed with figuring out your messaging on social media, learning how to position yourself. Because when we talk about sales, when you know specifically who you're speaking to, the sales conversations, and you know this because you do, a lot of high ticket sales stuff. If it's the same type of avatar, the sales conversations are almost identical. I ask a question and I know exactly how this person's going to answer because they fit this specific person. So that was really where my love for social media marketing and sales conversations, that's really where it all was born.
Got it. And why do you think for coaches specifically, it's so hard to niche down? Because it's we want to help everyone. And in the beginning, a lot of coaches don't have that kind of confidence in saying, okay, if I niche down too much, will anyone even find me? How is this, vegan girl in the dorm room gonna find me, for example?
Exactly.
What would you say to that?
Well, I think there's specific common mistakes that people make when it comes to niching down. And one of the big things is that people say, well, I have to market to everyone because everyone needs what I sell. And although that may be true, you may have an Instagram course that could work for the majority of people, or you could have a keto fitness program that could work for the majority of people. But when you really look at the most successful businesses in the market, they have a niche, and you probably don't even realize it unless you're really looking for it. I love the example of Planet Fitness. They increased their sales from, I think it was 2017. They increased their total sales from 2017 from the previous year by 13.7% to 429.9 million. So I'm always like, do we agree they are successful? And people are like, well, yeah, of course they're successful. And I'm like, well, they have a niche. They specifically exclude who they don't want in their gym. They have the lunk alarm. They have pizzas on Monday. I don't know. Have you ever been to Planet Fitness? No. Okay. Anybody who's been to Planet Fitness, you know what I'm talking about. And I even as I used to teach fitness classes and stuff. And even when I walk into Planet Fitness, I feel like this is not my tribe. I'm like, I'll just like jump on the treadmills for a little bit, like, cause it's cold in New York, but it's just not my group, because there's a lunk alarm. There's no string tank tops. They have Tootsie Rolls at the front, and it's definitely for a volume business. But the thing here is like, they publicly exclude who they do not want in their gym, and they cater all of their services to the people who would be willing to pay even the $10 a month is a really intentional decision that they made to niche down. So I'm like, by that logic, if staying general and marketing to everyone was the key to profits and success, then Planet Fitness would not be doing so well. And all the generalists would be making like millions of dollars. So I think that's a really big mistake that people make, where they just feel like they have to market to everyone because everyone needs what they sell. And the other big one is, I remember being on a coaching call, and I think it was for a network marketing company, and this girl was talking to her team, and we were talking about niching down and all this stuff. And she was like, guys, I know it feels really scary to niche down, because when you niche down, it's almost like going from this really big, like the whole ocean, you could fish in the whole ocean, and all of a sudden now you're working with this really, really small segment of the ocean, and you have a smaller net. And I was like, thank you. I was like, you just like visually illustrated the biggest freaking myth when it comes to niching down. And I was like, the truth is that niching down is actually casting with the right bait. Right? I was like, I'm not going to try to catch a shark with a piece of shrimp, because they're not going to go for it. So when you think about it on social media, and then when we were talking, I was like, light bulb. I was like, it's like having a freaking dog whistle that only your ideal client can hear. When somebody's scrolling social media and you are speaking to their specific pain points and calling out the things that they are struggling with in a very specific way. And I mean, that gets into like sales copy and stuff, but that's how you win. That's how you stand out among all of the other people who are marketing the same products and services, right? It's just getting crystal clear about who you want to serve. So I think that's another big mistake that people make, or the misconception. But the reality is, if you're speaking to everyone, you speak into no one. It just becomes vanilla, bland, general, and people scroll right past it.
Right. Got it. And what would like some tips be for people that are like, I don't know where to start with my niche?
Oh, that's a good one.
I feel like I can help the mom, but I feel like I can help the young woman. And like, what would you say to that kind of coach?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things to start with is just to get it on paper, because when it's in our heads, it's really hard to sort through. So I'm always like, brain dump it all on some paper and maybe figure out what these different avatars look like. And when I say ideal client avatar, I'm referring to like, you build out who this specific person is that you want to serve. So you would want to say like, I mean, there's different exercises for it, but like, where does she shop and what does she like to do for fun? And like, what's her income level? Is she married? Does she have kids? Right? So you build out, or it could be a guy, right? You build out what this person looks like. And so if you feel like you have multiple avatars, that's actually really common for a few reasons. Your avatar is often you in the past. Not always, but usually that's typically what we see. And so as a coach, you've probably been through a lot of different parts of your journey. I mean, even for myself, like I said earlier, started in health and wellness as a network marketer. So I could niche into working with newbie network marketers. And then I grew in network marketing. And then I was like, okay, I could work with the top network marketers. And then I started really working more with health and fitness coaches. Well, then I could niche into that. Or now I could niche into, life coaches or spiritual coaches or local business owners or whatever I want to do. There's options. And sometimes that can feel really overwhelming, especially for the multi-passionate entrepreneur who wants to work with everyone, wants to serve everyone, has so many ideas and squirrel brain, and they can't seem to figure out how to bring it down into a focus. So I would map out all of your different potential ideal client avatars and then really ask yourself, which one do you want to start with? And I think that's important because a lot of times my clients will get freaked out like, but I want to work with all these people and I want to help everyone. Cool. But like we said, if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. So start with one person. Your ideal client avatar is basically your bullseye. So it's not to say that you can't work with, like if you're like, I work with specifically with moms. Well, if somebody who's not a mom but is thinking about becoming a mom wants to work with you, does that mean you can't work with them? Because like, nope, sorry, you're not allowed in our club. Of course not. You can make that decision as to whether or not it makes as to whether or not it makes sense to bring that person into your program or, your tribe. Like you have to make that decision for yourself, but you've got to decide. You've got to just start with one. And listen, you may, niche down into a specific ideal client. And then, after 90 days, decide that that person's actually not who you want to work with. And that's not a loss. That's not a fail. That's a win because now you have clarity around who you don't want to work with, right? Like I have friends who early in their journey were working with divorced women, like newly fresh divorced women. And this woman, she was doing life coaching and she realized that these women were not emotionally, the ones she was specifically attracting, they were not emotionally in a place where they wanted help because they were still kind of grieving this loss. And her services really weren't meeting them where they were. They didn't have money because they were going through an expensive divorce, and they didn't have time because now they were figuring out how to do this whole single parent thing. So she was trying to market to these people, but they weren't ready emotionally, financially, spiritually to receive the coaching. And so after she built out a pretty successful business working with these women, she realized that it wasn't aligned for her anymore, and it was actually draining her energy, and people were constantly asking for discounts but to the point where $7 was too much for them, right? So I think you've just got to test things sometimes and throw it out there and see what works, because that's the only way you're going to get clarity if you're feeling really stuck. Like staying with the car in park is not going to give you the clarity that you need, so you got to put that baby in drive.
I love that. And, this whole idea of like trialing and testing for a while reminds me of like the fact that it takes a while to really nail down, who you want to work with and to get your first clients. What would you say to someone that has entered this space and they're thinking, okay, well, I need to make 6 figures in 6 months and all of that kind of stuff? Because I know you've been doing this since 2011, so you kind of have that understanding of like how long it can take for things. So what would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two sides to that, because on one hand, there's definitely, the momentum that you build over time with consistency and building trust. And on the other side, if we get a little bit metaphysical here and go into like the woo-woo side of things, it can happen really quickly. And when I kind of made some transitions, I went from, making an okay income to having a 6-figure launch literally overnight. And to me, I realized that, obviously had been building up an audience and things like that for quite a while. However, it really came down to the right offer in front of the right audience at the right time. And they wanted it. So I think there's a piece to that too, where people, clients of mine, followers, they'll say, oh God, Jen, it's so hard to make money online. Like, I'm not making money. I don't know what to do. I'm like, cool. Like, let's break this down. What are you selling? And they're like, well, I'm not selling anything. I'm like, well, how do you expect to get paid if you're not selling anything? You gotta offer something to your audience. You could post on social media till you're blue in the face, but people are not going to necessarily reach out to you and ask how they can work with you. Make an ask, you know? So I think especially for people doing high ticket sales, you can make a lot of money really quickly because you don't have to focus on quantity. You're focused on a small group of quality people who are willing to invest at a high level, who want to work with someone in a really intimate way, which the more, as the years go on, I'm seeing that more and more people are actually or more clients are asking for one-on-one attention versus, you know, doing all of these DIY courses. They want that intimacy. They want that connection. They want that accountability. So I think, you know, this year, if you're just starting, or even if you're starting over, or you feel like you just haven't gotten traction, make an offer, put together a package. I literally decided, that's what happened when I started doing business coaching for like high ticket. I literally woke up one day and realized, oh crap, I'm not in a good place financially. So what am I going to do about it? And I had bought a couple of different, you know, and gone through several business coaching courses. And I found this one person in particular who was only maybe one step ahead of me. And her courses and content were not as like professionally done as all the like big name people in the industry who had, you know, makeup designer, like set designers and makeup people on set and all this stuff. I was like, oh my God, that felt so far away. But this woman was just like, I don't know, no lighting design. Like it was just like her with her phone on her camera, whatever. And, you know, charging, you know, a few $1,000s for her stuff. And I was like, if she could do that, my crap is like way like nicer, right? Like I got good stuff going on. So I just was like, okay, well, I'm going to step outside of like the network marketing mindset that I get paid a $30 commission and coach someone forever. And I decided to put together a $3,000 package. And within like 4 weeks, I sold 2 of them almost with no promotion. Cause like I was just energetically aligned with what I was creating. And I was a little bit of ignorance on fire where I was just like, I'm just going to do this. Like I had no resistance around it. And all of a sudden I'm walking around like, oh my God, I just made like $6,000 and like people paid me for this. And those 2 clients, this was years ago, like we still keep in touch. We're still like good, like friends, and we're close. So it's like, you literally just decide that you're going to put it out there, that you're going to sign clients. And I just had just an energetic clarity around what I was going to do, how I was going to serve these people. We went deep. I helped them work through some major stuff in their business with their funnels and emotionally as well. And I mean, yeah, so I think things can happen really quickly. You don't have to say, oh, I'm not going to make, 6 figures for 5 years and the $1 million mark is only going to happen in 10 years. Like I have friends who do that very quickly, but I don't think you should go into it thinking, I'm going to have my very first launch needs to be 6 figures or I'm a failure. Like friends of mine will have first launch is $20,000. Then they, launch again and they revise it and they're like, okay, how can I tweak this? Then the next one is, 60,000. They're like, okay, we're going to launch it again. Like, what did we learn from that? How can we get it in front of more people? And they launch it again and it's like 125,000. And then they launch it again and it's like 400,000. They launch it again at 600,000, 800,000. So it's like, instead of just saying, oh, this thing was a failure, I'm going to start from scratch. Just keep refining what you're doing and you will get clarity along the way. Like just literally it's a game of staying focused and not getting defeated. Like, I think that's really like what it comes down to, right?
Right. And that's an interesting point about launches. Like, are you the kind of person that thinks like people should constantly be doing different launches, or do you think, there should be an evergreen funnel kind of thing, or like, what are your thoughts around that kind of stuff?
So for a long time, I was doing live launch after live launch after live launch. And for me personally, that made for a lot of stress and a lot of burnout. I do think live launches are very powerful and profitable. That being said, I'm right now like heavily team evergreen funnel because it requires, the setup for it, putting it all together does take time. It does take finessing and it does require a ton of patience. At least it did for me. And I have amazing mentors in that area who were like, here's my exact process. So I didn't try to DIY it, which I really don't recommend. And that's been really amazing. And this year our focus is really scaling the heck out of that evergreen funnel because it's just, we had version 1 of it going and it did pretty well and was converting, and we were, getting a pretty solid ROI with our Facebook ads. But yeah, now it's like this new version is going to kick some booty, and we're like so excited to relaunch so that we can get this new one up and running, because it really does create that passive income. Like my brother and sister-in-law, they had a baby back in September. So my little niece came into the world. And while I was sitting, getting to meet her for the first time, 2 sales came in, and I made $1,000 just by sitting for those 2 hours in the hospital. And I was like, that's why I do what I do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's why I poured blood, sweat, and tears into building this thing, so that I can enjoy those moments without having any stress. And knowing that like my business is making money, my clients are getting served, and I get to also live and not have to be in my computer, in my phone 24/7. Because as a coach, it wouldn't make sense. Like, people wouldn't want to hire me if all I did was work 24/7, because people will look at you and say, okay, I want a business like yours. I want a lifestyle like yours. And if I have zero freedom, then that's not what they're looking for. They want to be able to, be in the hospital and make $1,000, I'm sure. You know what I mean? And so I think that's an important thing to remember as well, that you've got to find the system that works for you, that creates balance for your life and for your personality type. Because some people live for launches. Like, they love the adrenaline. They have so much fun getting on live video every single day and just cranking out content, and they've got a system for it, and that makes them happy. If that's you, girl, do it. Like, do it. Like, that's cool. For me, I realized that was not sustainable for me, and I didn't like the idea of relying on live launches for the majority of my income, because it just put so much pressure on that it had to hit. And if it didn't hit, man, we were screwed. So that's why I'm like Team Evergreen. It's more sustainable, it's more measurable, it's more consistent. You can kind of identify the problems more quickly. So that's what I'm into at the moment.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you can give some tips around that, like, would you recommend coaches do their group programs in Evergreen funnel, or should they put some kind of one-on-one offer into a funnel? Just like, let's get a bit more technical.
Yeah. So, you certainly could do a one-on-one offer in an Evergreen funnel. Again, it really just depends on how many people you can handle. Like, how many one-on-one clients do you actually want? Like, sure, you could make 7 figures with one-on-one coaching, but do you want to have 35 clients? Probably not, because you're going to be on the phone all day, every day. So I think keeping that in mind is really important. What I've found through, what I've tested, and friends of mine who have very successful Evergreen funnels, is that it works really well for things that don't involve you being part of the deliverable. So if it's some kind of membership site, like a mid-level ticket membership site where people can either get on monthly or pay an annual fee, or if people, you have a DIY course. So like my course, I'm actually revamping it, adding a ton more content. And so it's going to be the $997 mark instead of $497. And both of those work really well for something like that. I mean, the higher it is, the lower the conversion rate, because the bigger the ask. So I think when it's something that's $997, you definitely want to have a little bit more of a strategy in place with Facebook ads. So what I mean by that is, I wouldn't necessarily run a cold Facebook ad, like run a Facebook ad to a webinar to a completely cold audience, have them hang out with me for 60 minutes, and then ask them to pay $1,000. So you need to have a little bit in place beforehand, retargeting people with, live videos, or, creating some kind of content so that those people are already warmed up to you before they get on the webinar, so that you get better conversions, and it's just a better overall experience for the people who are going through it. If you wanted to do something like a membership, I think that would work really well. Also, in my course, I do a little bit of a deliverable, especially with this new version, where I will be jumping on live once a month to do Q&A. I have one of my team members who's going to be answering questions during like business hours inside the Facebook group, but it's not something where they're getting group coaching. The group coaching, it's like, make sure you make your time protected. Elevate whatever your offer is that is your individual time, because you're super valuable. So if you've mapped out exactly what people can do for $997 instead of them paying you thousands of dollars, I don't take on any one-on-one clients now unless they've gone through my courses before. because it's just not a good use of their time. It's not a good use of my time. It's not a good use of their money because I'm just teaching them. We're just going over things that are in a video. It just doesn't make sense. So I'm always like, listen, just take this course first and then let's talk. Like if you can get through this course and, reach out to me when you're done or close to done, like then I totally want to work with you because I know that you're willing to show up, you're willing to put in the work, and it just makes for, I think, a better overall experience. But I mean, listen, there are people who do high ticket sales through an evergreen funnel, and you certainly can do that, but I would be mindful of how many people do you actually want to take on one-on-one. Now, if you're running like an agency, that could be really powerful. Or if you have a team, like let's say even Tony Robbins, he has, to work with him one-on-one is a 2-year wait list and $1 million. So, for him, if you try to book a call with a coach in his network, you get one of the people that he's trained. So I think if you're looking to create something like that for your business, where it's not solely focused on you, the individual, as the personal brand, and you're wanting to create like a bigger picture type of a thing, or like an agency or some kind of team where people can work with, people that you've brought on and trained and hired, then that could actually work really well and be really, really profitable. Mm-hmm. So it really just depends on what your goals are for the year and what you really want to create and what you want your time freedom to look like.
Yeah. Wow. Is it actually $1 million? That's insane.
It is $1 million. He's probably increased it now.
Wow.
So like even that, like thinking about that, where people are like, I'm afraid to charge $2,000 for my coaching. And, oh my God, how can I really, will people really pay if I up my $2,000 package to $3,000? It's like, people are paying Tony Robbins $1 million freaking dollars. There is money out there and there are people who want to pay you for your services. And when you up your prices, you get a different clientele. So this even goes back to like we were talking about before about niche and avatar. Like you up your prices, you get a different type of person. And the more, and I've seen this in my own business, I've seen this in masterminds and group coaching programs that I've been part of, the more people pay, the less needy they are, which is really strange, but it's just a different person. Like it just attracts a different type of person who's at a different level in their life and business. And they're going to reach out when they really, really need something, not necessarily every single day being like, oh my God, help me, save me, fix my business. So, because we've all been there, right? Like we've all had those types of clients, and nothing against anyone. We've all been in that place where we're like freaking out because we're just getting our business started. But you just have to make a decision about who you want to serve. And if it's not that person, then upping your prices is a great way to deter those people from wanting to work with you.
Right. And are you of the group that says like you should put your prices out there outright, or not put it on your website and kind of let them know on the call? Like what's your thoughts on that?
I personally, so for my stuff, I've always had it on like a form. So if somebody wants to learn more about working with me, they answer some questions, and at the bottom of the form, I ask, how are you going to pay for this? Do you want to do the payment plan or in full? And they have to check a box before we get on a call together so that they are making that commitment. Because I'm like, I'm not getting on some people try to get like free coaching on calls. I'm like, that's not what this is about. If we're getting on a call, it's to decide whether or not working together is a good fit. Any questions you have, we can answer on the call. I want to learn a little bit more about that person, see if I want to work with them. And I like to let people know up front, because if I was the consumer, I would want to know what the cost was, mm-hmm. or what the investment was rather, because listen, I've invested heavily in my business, and I also make smart decisions with my money. So I think there's been a push, and I don't know if you've seen this too, and I've seen a lot of posts about people kind of almost pressuring people into enrolling in their courses and their one-on-one, because they're like, you need to fix your money mindset and you need to blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, there is, on one hand, that is true where people need to make an investment, but I don't ever want people to, there was one woman who joined one of my courses and she's like, my husband turned in his 401k so that I could afford this. And I'm like, that's fine, because that's your own personal decision. And it wasn't just for the course, it was also so that she could start her coaching business. But it's like, if you're willing to make that kind of an investment in yourself, then great. But I would never encourage someone to do that so that they could pay for my services, because I want somebody to come into it with a total sense of ownership, that they're ready for it. I don't want them freaking out about money. I don't want to get an email 4 weeks in that they can't pay their second payment. No, if you are going to join this course or this program, you are coming in with you know, an energy that feels aligned with making this decision. If you're not ready, you're not ready. Like, don't do it. I just had someone reach out to me the other day and she was like, so I had joined your this course that you did in the past and I never finished it. Do you think I should join this other course that you have? And I was like, well, if you haven't finished the other one, you know yourself better than anyone. So if you think you're not going to finish this one, then no, I don't think you should join. I don't think you should invest the money. And I was telling my boyfriend that. He's like, what? Why would you do that? You just like turned away a sale. And I was like, because I don't want her money. Because if she's not going to do the work, then that's not a win-win for either of us. That's not energetically in alignment. So I think just having people invest from a certain energy, that's what's most important to me as a coach versus that just, making more money. Like you can always make more sales, but your refund rate will be through the freaking roof if you're just pressuring people into enrolling. Like it's just not a good feeling.
Yeah. You're right. You're right.
That is my take on it. But
what about coaches that say, okay, I'll charge $2,000, but where am I going to find someone that can pay that much money? Like, what would you tell that person?
Yeah. So if they're like, where would I find someone? I would say, I don't know. Where would you find someone? And, kind of coach them through that belief that's not serving them, that there aren't people who are willing to pay to get a certain end result. So, maybe it's something in their messaging that needs some tweaking as well. But if they are in the business world and, they're helping people with high ticket sales, well, if you're teaching someone how to make $10,000 for one-on-one coaching, you can definitely charge whatever the heck you want because you're getting somebody the tools that will give them not just an ROI on one client, but on how many clients this month and this year and over the next 10 years. Like, how is that knowledge going to empower them to change their life in so many different ways? Or if it's health and wellness, it's never just about 5 pounds. Like if somebody loses 5 pounds, how is that going to affect their intimate relationship with their significant other? It's going to make them, more connected to their significant other. It's going to make them, maybe a better parent, a better friend, a happier person. They're going to have more energy. They're going to show up at work with more vitality. So maybe they get a raise or, it snowballs into every area of life when you start making positive improvements. So for that person who's like, where would I find somebody to pay this much? It's like, they would need to do some inner work and understanding of like, what is the impact you're actually making so that you understand how freaking valuable your offer actually is for someone. And because if you don't believe your stuff is worth $2,000, no one else is going to buy it for $2,000. So you've got to get into alignment with the price that you're putting out there.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Well, I think we should kind of wrap things up. So to wrap things up, why don't you tell us a bit about, like, we're in 2019 now, like, what do you see as some of the best trends, like best ways for coaches to kind of market themselves when it comes to sales?
Yeah, so I've been seeing a big push for Instagram stories. So, for a while it was like, everyone was like, get out of the DMs, don't be messaging people. But I think if you can engage people through direct message in an organic way, just by, messaging them back in their own stories, creating those conversations, doing polls, doing the Q&A stuff on Instagram, doing Instagram live, but Q&A style, like just getting on and being like, hey, does anybody have any questions about health or life or relationships, whatever your niche is, and just giving free coaching on there just to get people to see what it's like working with you. And that's a great way. I did that a couple of times, and nearly every time people message me after, like, okay, how do I work with you? Because we just that connection. They're like, oh, it's like actually talking to you. I think through getting on camera, that's been a really fun thing. So when people reach out to me and they're like, hey, loved your podcast, I will occasionally slip on the camera and be like, hey, and like, hey, Kate, thank you so much for like listening. I really appreciate it. Like, you're freaking awesome. Like, blah, blah, blah. And just send them a personalized video message back. And people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you just like wrote me a video. Like, listen, I'm not a celebrity by any means, or like, I'm not like some big deal, but it's just funny. Cause like when you're like, even podcasts that I listen to, there are people who are now my peers and friends, but I used to be obsessed with their podcast. And I was like, oh my God, this is so crazy. I'm like meeting you in person, because you just feel like that person is your friend, because with podcasting, it's so intimate. You're like talking to them every single day. You're like having this phone conversation basically. And so I think being able to create more connection And I think this year, especially, that's really what I know my focus is going to be, because there's so much push for, with Instagram, like getting more followers and, seeing the numbers go up and, oh my God, where's my like newsfeed engagement? None of that really freaking matters. Like that's all the small stuff. So get out of worrying about those types of things and really focus on creating quality connections with your ideal client. Like you could have 1 million followers on Instagram, but if none of them are ever going to buy your course, it doesn't really freaking matter. Unless you're trying to be an Instagram influencer and you want brand deals. Like that's a totally different business model. So you just need to decide for yourself, how you want to show up and think about how you can create more connections with people, because I think that's really what has been missing. And I don't know if you've even seen this, like with Instagram stories coming out and the Instagram feed, people are almost getting away from posting the stock photos and the, professional photos and just trying to create more like on the go real-time content, because that's what people want. They want real, they want authentic.
Yeah, totally. I think literally Angie Lee was saying the same thing.
That's really funny.
I was like, I think I heard that on Angie's podcast, but I love that. And I totally agree for sure. Awesome. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you again. I don't want to keep you for too long, but this has been super useful.
Yeah, I'm so glad.
Yeah, and thanks for being here. So if people want to learn more about you, learn more about your courses, just connect with you, where can they do that?
Yeah, so you can find me at Hey Jen Casey, Jen with one N, pretty much anywhere, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, I'm all over, or my website, heyjencasey.com. Those are really my key places, and everything's kind of connected up there.
Sweet. Awesome. Great. Well, yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.